So it seems like more revolting subtleties of Steve Harvey's mercilessness began to surface since it was as of late uncovered that he might play had a conspicuous impact in Wendy Williams' destruction and network program. Crossing out, well, these two people of note have for quite some time been daytime TV staples, and there were unquestionably not the best energy between them. Obviously, Steve proclaimed a conflict on Wendy for all that she was saying regarding his family and knowing as powerful and rich Steve is it seems like he could accelerate William's disintegrating vocation. Yet we should figure out reality together. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Celeb Live channel. So all of you realize that Wendy Williams' life has been a long way from Oak in the new couple of years. And the torrential slide of individual expert and well-being battles is greater than anybody could deal with without going crazy well in spite of her public veneration and super durable space on daytime television. Wendy has made numerous foes all through her profession, and folks a portion of the big names she had a problem with are rich and compelling like Diddy and Steve Harvey. And it appears to be that a significant number of these individuals needed to obliterate Wendy's profession eventually. And as of late, it has been guessed that Steve additionally assumed a gigantic part in Wendy's defeat, since he felt annoyed by the cruel words the television diva was saying regarding his family, and basically his girl Lori Harvey. I mean, we as a whole skill Steve reveres, and venerates his receptive little girl Lori, yet attempting to demolish somebody's vocation north of a couple of proclamations appears to be something unforgiving to do. And definitely I realize that Wendy expresses her genuine thoughts, however. This is what we as a whole love her for, talking about things that we as a whole are too frightened to even think about saying without holding back. Well, it seems like Steve had his own viewpoint about Wendy's terrible raw truth, and he took her words about his family exceptionally near his heart and evidently thought there was something profoundly private in her explanations. Well, assuming you know Wendy Williams, she can be brutal with anybody, including herself, and keeping in mind that numerous other celebs simply overlook the television diva and her show, Steve chose to take the issues in his grasp and shut down each of the three claims about him and his mixed faction. Clearly Wendy knew were discouraged to hurt Steve, and he was unable to stand her kidding about his significant other Marjorie and his supportive children. Particularly his dear Princess Lori, well, is continually being ruined by her stepfather's consideration, time, and gifts. And that is something Steve's natural children never have had. For instance, his child from the principal spouse Broderick focused on his rough relationship with Steve, sharing, "I didn't actually have my father full-time in my life until I was 16. Right, so all consideration and love goes to Lori. And clearly Steve is all set to all lengths, attempting to satisfy his little princess, regardless of whether it implies harming someone else or, in any event, obliterating their profession. And as Steve committed to get back at Wendy for blending his family name, or would it be advisable for me, I rather say Lori's name with the mud, he even chose to take her program and supplant it with his own self-named show. I mean, Steve has fostered some sort of poisonous fixation on Lori. And this is how things have been. Young lady is a heavenly messenger, her very humiliating relationships, and jumping starting with one man's bed, then onto the next much of the time hit the media. And no doubt it actually appeared to Steve that Lori was banged by Wendy in vain. So when Lori was 23 she used to date rapper Future. And folks, don't let me know that you didn't think it was perhaps of the most sketchy choice in Lori's life. In spite of a 13-year age hole, she dated rapper maker Future for quite a long time, between late 2019 and the mid-year of 2020. And come on, the buddy has 8 children from various child mothers, and like his oldest child was Lori, rather than his father, yet let them manage their untidy love existence without us. It seems like Wendy couldn't stand beside his sickening association, and she hammered both Lori and her folks on her show, saying Steve and Marjorie ought to be humiliated for allowing their girl to act like a rubbish and date a person with such countless children and disputable dating notoriety. As Wendy said, he has 8 children with 4 different child mothers. Assuming this was my girl at 23, I would break her neck, break her skull, and toss her down the means. And you're not the supervisor of your children when they're 23. Years old Lori, what were you doing, young lady? Everybody discusses you. You're so beautiful. You don't need to be that young lady. Obviously, Wendy Williams really hate Lori Harvey's relationship with Future, or however folks manage what is happening in her typical way. Williams impacted the 23-year-old's decisions, while additionally being condemning of the nurturing endeavors of Steve and Marjorie Harvey. And regardless of by every other person being critical of this association, Wendy even got a gigantic reaction from Lori's fans for speaking the truth. Many individuals were not satisfied with Wendy's remarks, bringing up the viciousness in the television diva's language, and marked her proclamations revolting great evidently. These individuals have never seen a solitary episode of Wendy's show, since she is known for her harsh tone and unforgiving proclamations. And keeping in mind that the whole virtual entertainment was sent swirling and talking about the occurrence, Steve Harvey was at that point plotting his vengeance, since it was likewise an immediate hit on him and his dearest spouse Marjorie. And what Steve despises the most is being censured for his nurturing great, considering his rough relationship with his natural children. The nurturing question might be very delicate for himself, and he committed to provide Wendy with the painful but necessary consequence for openly dissing him and his family, in spite of Wendy being scrutinized by certain individuals. Most of her fans lauded the television diva for expressing her genuine thoughts and uncovering all that was on individuals' psyches. As one individual composed, Wendy wasn't being obscure, she was essentially talking reality. And another client added, quit coming for Wendy, in light of the fact that Steve welcomes you to his occasions. And all doesn't mean you're correct. Wendy expressed out loud whatever we as a whole have been thinking, yet with Steve really ready to pursue Wendy Williams. Due to these words, it looked so on the grounds that not long subsequent to expressing those things, Wendy's well-being unexpectedly declined. And later it prompted her show being dropped. I mean, you express a couple of cruel things about the rich and persuasive individual on public television, and afterward, out of nowhere, your life is flipping around. Well, doesn't seem to be happenstance. So Wendy reviled Lori at her dating decisions and beats. She felt debilitated and needed to remove some time from her cherished program. Now the entire timing of this recommends that Steve had something to do with this story. And keeping in mind that Wendy was more stressed over her battle for cash with her pitiable ex, someplace in the shadow, Steve Harvey was plotting his retribution, and folks, the timing was only perfect for himself. And you know why, in light of the fact that at around similar time, his own partner daytime television shows, Steve has been dropped by NBC. And as insiders guaranteed, Steve was past enraged about this and was wanting to make his enormous return with one more organization. And think about this man's thought process of nothing better compared to take the time allotment of the one who hauled his little girl Lori and humiliated his whole family. Harvey wanted to step into Wendy's 10 a.m. Fox time allotment, and it was even expressed that he was taking sure actions to get the spot behind him. And in the event that he might have pulled the whole thing, that might have been the greatest and the best retribution in the entire history of daytime TV. As it was estimated around then, Steve had a colossal opportunity to get that spot, since he was a trustworthy and